society? What do you want? If you could tell these gatekeepers and these power brokers to give you something, what would you want? The first thing I say is just stay out of my damn way.
Yes, leave us alone. Yes.
Leave us alone. Because the thing is,
like, what is that going to even look like?
I like one of my favorite quotes from Nana John Henrik Clarke is the true purpose of education is to teach a people to be responsible handlers of power. So I think that naturally, I think that's why we should distinguish between schooling and education.
Mm-hmm. Because
education is really kind of like a formalized socialization, right? So I think sometimes we get caught up in the pedigree of institutions that we did not create for ourselves. And sometimes we don't understand that what it is that we learn in these institutions, it really works to alienate us further from who we are than to teach us about who we are and how to act on our own behalf. So I think that's what true education is. I think that's why we should place such strong emphasis on ancestors, like on our ancestors. I remember when I was substituting in a class, they had an English class, and they was giving the kids all this stuff on William Shakespeare, and I think they was reading Hamlet. I think that's what it was. They were reading Hamlet, all this old English, and the more they were reading it, and the kids start disengaging. Some would walk out the room, start doing whatever, The more I thought about it, I was like, they need to read somebody who talks the way they speak, like the way they speak. They need to read some of these authors that write in Ebonics. They need to, why are they wasting their time with 16th, 17th century old English when they could be learning how their own ancestors here in the United States spoke? They could be reading Zora Neale Hurston. They could be reading, Richard Wright, Tony Kadebambara. They could be reading Baldwin. They could be reading all of these people, right? But they're wasting their time trying to learn old English, right? But if you think about it, really what it is, that's the logical consequence of being a part of an institution that they've created. Because the reason that they create the schools the way they do is for the explicit purpose to socialize you into being acceptable in their society. So what is your place within white society? How do white people think of us? They want us to be reduced to servitude. They don't want us to be thinking and functioning on our own behalf here in this country, so it stops being their country, right? But go ahead, bro.
Well, the thing is, and when you really think about it, so they forced Shakespeare on us, and to a degree, if a young brother or sister determines that his or her fate is tied into working and living within the dominant society's institutions, he or she can use that exposure to Shakespeare. But if he or she is not consuming it critically, while also consuming the Zora Neale Hurstons, while also consuming Black art and African-centered art, then they're doing so at the risk of reducing their soul, their Africanness. So you got America, you got PWIs, you got the status quo, you got mainstream media, mainstream education. It only makes sense that they would reinforce their own mores and culture and codes. It only makes sense. The problem is that they reduce ours. Okay? They reduce ours, and then they do not create a space by which we even know that there's other things to learn. If you're not plugged into, like if you don't have a mind like ours, then you may not even know to point a child to Zora Neale Hurston. You may not even know to point a child to bell hooks. You may not even know that. And so then we have this problem that we don't even know we have. It's the old adage of sometimes you don't even know what you don't know. Now I say divest completely. I say divest completely. And when I say that, I mean, you know, I'd like to see Black people saying, I would rather get paid $50K to work with some Black folks and create jobs and opportunity for other Black people than to be a cog in the Google wheel and get double that. I'd like to see that, but I also understand that if a person makes a choice to have their talents deployed at Google, I ain't gonna knock them. They're doing their best. They want to feed their kids. I want to feed my kids. I understand where you're coming from, right? But the problem is that if a substantive portion of our community doesn't endeavor to be Black and be Black centric and create Black spaces and create Black institutions, then we're going to keep being reduced. And so the example I'd like to point to people is this. When people say, what do you want from the dominant society? What do you want? If you could tell these gatekeepers and these power brokers to give you something, what would you want? The first thing I say is just stay out of my damn way.
Yes, leave us alone. Yes.
Leave us alone. Because the thing is, I have seen white people do criminal acts at the corporate level that harm tens of thousands of people. They pay a small fine. They keep it pushing. They get awards. They retire on schedule. Hell, here in Chicago, a police chief, John Burgess, did time in the feds for torture and still kept his pension. After he got out of the pen, he was drawing taxpayer-funded pension. Meanwhile, there are Black people who have lied about where they live to get their child in a better school, who have ended up in jail.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is the problem. I don't need anything extra from you, MFs. I need you all to get out of our way.